this is one of the problems, how to get rid of the Boltzmann, it's called the Boltzmann brain problem in cosmology. I might say that it's an example of trying to reason about typicality, and that the reasoning about typicality is a kind of scary and dangerous kind of reasoning. And this was the most undisciplined thinking about typicality goes under the name of the Doomsday paradox. And that says that, well, if you find yourself during the time of duration of some phenomenon, you're probably not right at the beginning or right at the end. You're probably sort of somewhere more or less close to the middle. So they would say, well, if by that line of reasoning, I'm a person, and therefore I'm probably not in the first 5% of people who ever lived, or in the last 5% of people who ever lived. And so then you can go on and thinking in a rather undisciplined way, say, oh, well, that means that, well, people have been around for about a million years. That means that the human species will probably go extinct within 50 million years, or 25 million years. Or if you said, well, I'm a civilized person, I'm a person in civilization. Well, civilization's been around for like a few thousand years, maybe 10,000 years, something like that. Well, then they say, well, it's very unlikely that there will be civilization a million years from now, if you like to think that way. And Carlton Caves, who is in my profession of quantum information and quantum optics, he once made a comment about this, says that the reason that you shouldn't go too far with this kind of reasoning is that suppose if you go to the birthday party and you find that someone is going to have a 50th birthday party and you don't know anything else about them, you might as well tell them that there's one chance in 3 that they'll live to be 150. But an even more nasty version of this is he proposes going to a maternity ward in hospital and meeting the parents of a day-old baby and telling them they probably shouldn't try to get too attached to this baby because it won't live more than a few weeks in all likelihood. It's a problem that's connected with this. Is a pretty famous problem in statistics. It's called the German tank problem, and it arose during the Second World War, when in the preparation for the Normandy invasion, the Allies were trying to figure out how many tanks there were, in German tanks there were in Europe. And they had reports from the spies that they had, but the spies, some of them were unreliable and the reports were not consistent. So someone suggested, or maybe it became obvious to several people, that they ought to look at the tanks and the parts of tanks, like the wheels and so on, that have been captured in battle, and look at the serial numbers. And it turns out that if you have, and of course the Nazis were quite systematic in numbering everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, in the order that they were manufactured. And it turned out that the evidence by these serial numbers, calculating in a straightforward way, given this many specimens, you know that there have been at least as many as the largest serial number. And if you have maybe 20 of these tanks, it's not going to be much more than the largest serial number. So you can get a like 5% estimate. It turned out to be quite accurate after the fact. But when we talk about ourselves as humanity and say, well, how long will humanity live? That's a little bit like reasoning about tanks if you have only one. We have only one instance, and if we're talking about something that hasn't happened yet, like human extinction, it's actually having no instances. So it's a dangerous area of reasoning, and yet it's hard to avoid in modern cosmology. In fact, we had a conference at IBM about a year ago about cosmology and about the relation between quantum mechanics and cosmology. And one of the one of the speakers gave a talk called the anthropic principle. We can't live without it and we can't live with it.